What up guys, it's Dragon Ball for Life here today and I'm back with another video today. Now today's video I want to talk about who is the smartest character in all of anime. Now I've seen this question pop up quite a bit. I've seen it on TikTok, I've seen it on YouTube Shorts, I've seen it on YouTube as in general, people putting up polls on who's the smartest character in anime, and they have a select few characters that they reuse quite a bit because these guys are usually the top tier intellectuals when it comes to the anime discussion. It's Bulma, Senku, Light Yagami, Lelouch, the one guy from Jujutsu Kaisen, I forgot what his name is, Aizen, the other guy from Bleach that was smarter than Aizen that they stated, and a couple of other people, So this question has been going on for quite a bit, and I want to get into the bottom of who I personally think is the smartest, character in all of anime, and why I think this character is definitively the smartest, and why I feel like a lot of people do agree with my argument, but I do think that this discussion is a lot more complex than people think because it is more intricate when you get into it and dive more deep into it, and that's the whole point of this video. I want to not just say who's the smartest, but also dive more deep into the question itself and explain why it's kind of a bit more complex, and you're going to see a bit of different possible answers from other people. Also, I forgot Shikamaru also. Those are just the few that I hear quite often when this discussion is brought up. Now, before I get into that, I do want to give a big shout out to a new subscriber of mine by the name of MNMBoy26. So big thank you to you for subscribing to this channel. Now, this discussion is quite complex because for me personally, I think there's three possible answers you can go with, and it really depends on what you want to define as intelligence. And why is this confusing and complex? The reason why it's confusing and complex is because intelligence is a lot more broad and more complex of a term than a lot of people think. There's this book I read years ago. It was called like 7 different types of intelligence. And it was talking about, mathematical and analytical intelligence. It was talking about artistic intelligence. It was talking about, athletic intelligence. And then there's like other types of ones. But it was showcasing that intellect can go into many different avenues, and it's not as simple as what somebody can invent, or mathematical equations they can solve, or just knowing a lot of knowledge. It really depends, because there's musical geniuses out there that naturally are not geniuses. They do have a higher level of intellect than most other people, but usually their intellect lies into their musical talent. But in this case, it's more just talking about broadly as a whole, who has the highest level of intellect in general in anime. And even within that confines, it's a lot more complex than people think. And the reason why I come up with 3 different types of intelligence and 3 different types of way you can go with this questioning is basically because the difference between comparing reality compared to fiction has something that changes up how intelligence works. Now, in reality, you just obviously look at what somebody's able to accomplish, maybe their IQ, even though a lot of smart people themselves don't agree with the IQ stats as proving somebody's smarter than the other, but it's basically achievements, what type of fields that they were able to get into, and the broad amount of knowledge that they know, and how complex their mind can solve problems and stuff. Now, that's how you basically do it there, but in anime, there's 3 things, and I want to go through them. One, I would consider tactful / manipulative intelligence. The other one is fictional intelligence, and the other one is realistic intelligence. Now, the strategic / manipulative, I put those both together because in a battle scenario or in a fight, you need to be not only strategic in combat, but also strategic when it comes to the psychology of the opponent. And this is something you see in real fights where they're not just analyzing what the person is able to do, but their mindset and what they're accustomed to when they're fighting, like like a preset combination strike that they might hit with, or fighting style that you can basically analyze and then use against them. So that's what I want to go into, because in anime, most of the times when we're talking about intelligence, we're usually talking about combat prowess and manipulative intelligence, which I think those two can be separate. Maybe you can separate it as four, but that's the way I see it. But the other two, those are the most important ones, and I think these are the big deciding factors. And this is where a lot of the confusion and the arguments and the confliction between the two happen, because it really depends on which lens you look through it. Now, the fictional sense is basically what these characters, since they're in fictional worlds, they can accomplish some crazy goals. They can create, time machines, androids, bio life forms. They can create infinite energy sources. They can create so many crazy things. And since it's science fiction or, just fantasy, it doesn't really need to follow the laws of, reality and science, because a lot of the stuff that we see that are invented in these shows are either not realistic or not to the extent that they are able to make it happen. But it's fiction, so we usually ignore that. So there's the fictional aspect when it comes to intelligence, and then there's the realistic aspect when it comes to these characters' intelligence. And I think this is where it really differs the two in that category. The other one is like more on its own, but the reason why it differs those two is because the argument here for realistic intelligence is, well, they're not just saying stuff that, because usually when you watch shows or stuff or movies, there's usually a common term called science mumbo jumbo, where it basically means that in these science fiction shows and stuff, they are not very realistic, so they throw in they either might make up some scientific terms and words just so they can have just so they can explain something that they don't understand fully themselves, because they are writers in the end of the day. They're not scientists. They're not going to know all these things. They might have some knowledge in some stuff, but they're going to be still pretty limited in what they know. And then there's the other type of science mumbo jumbo, where they do use actual real scientific words, but it's just random. It's like an American person with a Chinese or Japanese tattoo like of a kanji or whatever, and it's usually just random words of you translated in English. And that's the same thing what they do in movies and shows is, since they're supposed to be nonsensical and the writers are not super mega geniuses, they usually don't understand, so they throw in random scientific terms and terminologies that they know. Sometimes they may get it a little bit right, but most of the times they don't. And it's just a mixed mash of like different words to describe something to make them sound more intelligent. And that's the more on the fictional side. But on the realistic side is not only showcasing the scientific stuff or what they're explaining, but explaining it realistically and accurately. And you guys probably seen some videos out there of people in specific professions, such as doctors, engineers, or physicists. They've made YouTube channels where they basically react to forms of media, either anime, movies, comic books, whatever. They look at those and they apply their real world knowledge to it and to see if it's valid or not valid. And usually I've been seeing a lot with more doctors where they do video series on different series. There's this one that I like, this one British guy, I forgot what his name is, but he's a pretty cool dude where he basically checks out different animes. He talked about Baki, he's talked about Hunter x Hunter, he's talked about countless other animes, and he basically goes into the medical science in it, and he explains if this is medically possible or this is not medically possible. So you see those, and those analyses are showing in a realistic aspect. Does this, what has been shown there, is it true? And that's where I think that intelligence comes into place. And for particularly one character specifically that has been hailed the highest, which I myself also agree to as being the case. But yeah, when you look at the realistic aspect, it's like, well, you can say in the non-fiction ones, like, they accomplished more, made this or that, but then you can also say, well, they never really go in depth on how they're able to do this or what they know. Is just, oh, we can do it because science fiction and anything can happen. Whereas there might be other series or franchises that are more realistic, and the more realistic approach shows the more level of intelligence that has been written into the show because of the writer themselves or himself. It could be one person or multiple people. But yeah, you see this all the time. There's some shows that try to do this science element. They do more sci-fi, so it's more nonsensical. And then there's ones that are more grounded and realistic, and both can have characters that are intelligent, but one, their intelligence is tied directly to realistic arguments. So if these guys make those videos, like an engineer, if there's a show that's more grounded in reality, they will get more points for being intelligent compared to a show that just doesn't follow any rules. And this is where it gets into it. So let's get into it now. For the fictional characters, usually the arguments you hear is Bulma, since she created a time machine. People say she created the dino capsules, which she didn't, her dad did, but she is smarter than her father. It has been stated. If you read the Jocko manga, when Jocko's ship crashed, the scientist guy was struggling to make it, but Bulma was able to fix it at the age of 6 pretty easily, and she was able to work on rockets pretty easily. Dr. Briefs even mentioned how intelligent Bulma is, even smarter than him, and Dr. Gero is also quite intelligent, and going based off of his intelligence, Bulma, I'm pretty sure she's supposed to be the smartest character in that world, and she's even smarter than him. This guy was able to create, a bio warrior like Cell, who had the cells and DNA of all these other people, create a computer that can create him, created, cyborgs and then androids, created an energy source that's infinitely replenishing, and she's supposed to be above that. So they have some advanced tech in the Dragon Ball world, and Bulma is supposed to be on the pinnacle of it. So technically, she should be one of the smartest, if not the smartest. And then we have like other characters like Dr. Vegapunk from One Piece. We have all these other inventors and these other intellectual characters. But let's be honest. Even though Bulma is very smart, her her accomplishments are not very realistic, and she never goes in depth into explaining anything scientific. She just showcases like, oh, I can make this and I can make that. But when it comes to a specific character, when it comes to the realistic aspect, this person actually goes into details and explains it, and can be scientifically proven, showcasing that they're just genuinely smart and don't need to make some BS just to get past with their knowledge. But yeah, for me personally, I would say Bulma is definitely the smartest when it comes to just purely fictional. I know a lot of people are going to say this character, that character. Shikamaru is smart, but he's not. He's doing some strategic stuff, but that would more lean into the strategic / psychological intelligence, and that's why I think it needs to be separate. Because I hear people saying, "Oh, Aizen's the smartest." No, it's Shikamaru, this and that. But Aizen and Shikamaru, their intelligence lies in their ability to manipulate their opponents and in a battle scenario, whereas Bulma, she's not a fighter, so her intelligence doesn't lie there, but she can create advanced technology. I'm pretty sure her intelligence would be well above somebody like Aizen, even though he orchestrated the whole plan with Ichigo and him being what he is. But it's like, are you telling me that that's more advanced than creating a goddamn time machine? That's not. But then again, you have to take into consideration that there's different levels or types of intelligence. Because Goku's a moron, but when it comes to fighting, he's a complete genius. When it comes to, he was able to analyze Hit's abilities that are very, scientifically detailed and very complex. And Goku, with his limited amount of knowledge, was able to still fully understand it and counter it fully. So yeah, Goku is a prime example of a character who's not smart, yet still smart at the same time. Aizen is obviously definitely smart, but his intelligence does not lie purely... He's not a purely intelligent character like Bulma is. She's just intelligent all around. He's more intelligent in a specific set area, and mostly in forms of manipulation, and I guess you could say a form of psychology. But then again, he does have a big advantage with the fact that his Zanpakuto can literally mess with the entire senses of a person. So it's like, no shit, they're going to be able to do, manipulate people very well. It's literally, they have an ability that can do it easily for them. So there's that. So people argue that. I forgot, I think his name's Hanaclogs from Bleach. I'm sorry, I forgot. I haven't seen Bleach in a while, except for the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, which came back. But he's stated to be smarter than Aizen, and unlike Aizen, he actually has a scientific mind. He has created stuff, and he's considered to be the smartest mind in One Piece. I mean, not One Piece, Bleach. But let's be honest, Bulma is infinitely smarter. Whatever he created with the Zanpakutos and the modified souls, they're impressive. But he still has some magical power or ability for to help him out. Whereas Bulma, just purely intelligence and mechanical work, she was able to create this. So I'll give Bulma definitely the #1 spot when it comes to fictional intelligence. Strategic, you could definitely put a lot of people in the category. definitely what's his name, Shikamaru is definitely up there, but the thing is mostly he's characters that are not that powerful anyway, and if he was really strategic, he should know that he has a very limited, energy reserve, like stamina, and he should know to, in a battle, to take that into consideration and find a way to minimize that, and utilize it as best as possible. But he still struggles with it. And then Aizen, I would say manipulatively, he is definitely the highest. Some people might say Hattenclogs, but Hattenclogs is more intelligent in general, and especially when it comes to it, advancements in creating things. Whereas he might dabble in it a little. And then I guess you can also say the same for Orochimaru. Orochimaru was the same. But when it comes to inventions, it's definitely Bulma and her intelligence. When it comes to manipulation, I would definitely say Aizen. He's the best manipulator. No, actually, I don't think Aizen's even the best manipulator in all the anime. I would say Lelouch. Why I say Lelouch? Because once again, like I said, Aizen, it's easy for him because one, he has his Zanpakuto where he can create these illusions and easily mess with people's mind, and two, people mention how the fact that he basically made Ichigo and led that up. But once again, that's not that complex. He just basically strung a couple of situations to get people across to get a relationship to have him, and he had all that years of preparing. So it's like it's not that fair to say he's the smartest. I would definitely say Lelouch. Why? Well, Lelouch did have time to prepare. He was still pretty young. He was just a high schooler, and he did not expect. He didn't know how to take them down until he got the Geass, and then he found a perfect way to take them down. Now, people might say, "Well, what about Light?" Light was able to, outsmart the police department, outsmart the rest of the world from finding him, and even Light, who not Light, L, who has one of the highest, detective skills, and he was able to, there's many, evidence and feats that he has of being a detective, master and stuff, and Light was able to get the one up on him. Though Light did need a lot of help. Light had a lot of situational stuff. Light was almost screwed a bunch of times, but if I'm being honest, I still think Lelouch should win, and I'm going to get into that. Now, like I said, Aizen is smart. He is very good manipulator and strategic, but I think if you're going to compare who's the best, it would definitely be a battle between Light and Lelouch. And now, before I used to say Lelouch would be the smartest character, him or either Bulma being the smartest character in general, but then when I started to think more about it, I was like, it's a far more complex, because Lelouch is smart. He is manipulatively, he is insanely smart. But Bulma is just in general way smarter than him. He could never accomplish what she has, but then again, she could never accomplish what he has. But that's because it's like comparing apples and oranges when it comes to their intelligence. It's a lot more complex than people may think. But when you get characters like Aizen, Lelouch, and Light, those characters are around the same. Their intelligence comes from the same area, and I think Aizen's not on their level, and Light is definitely up there, but I don't think Light's on Lelouch's level either, and I'll get into why, because I know a lot of people kind of have a big disagreement with this, because they're like, no, Light's better, Light's smarter, no, Lelouch is smarter. And the reason why I think Lelouch is smarter is, look at their situations. Light, he was trying to kill criminals. He had a death book where he can just write their names and kill them however he wanted. He didn't even need to come into contact with them, just get their names. And, yes, he did have L on his case, but L at that time did not know that there was a supernatural item that could do this. Even with his intelligence, he should not have been able to piece this together, except for the fact that Light basically fell into his trap so easily. If he was more, methodical with his, his plans of protecting himself from getting caught, he would have been better. Yes, he did plan ahead for if they try to catch him, how to hide it, but he wasn't, subtle about his approach in the beginning. And what I mean is his approach to taking down crime. He just was, he was reckless with it. He was off the handle, but just basically killing everybody and anybody, just giving them heart attacks, and he wasn't being smart. If he was really being smart, he would have, he wouldn't have done it all at once, because then you're creating this big, problem all at once, and you're basically drawing a lot of heat and attention to a problem. Like, for example, like if there's like a disease outbreak, the disease outbreak, if it kills a couple of people, it's not too bad, but once it kills a bunch of people and affects a bunch of people, then it has more attention on it, and that more attention that's on it, the bigger chances that the disease is going to be killed off faster. So it needs to be a slow process, and he didn't take his time at all. He was not methodical enough with his plan in general. He was just like, yep, This person's bad, I'm gonna write their name, I'm gonna kill them. That person's bad, I'm gonna write their name, I'm gonna kill them. And that was a bad plan because he basically it was too many coincidences for the police to say, hey, this is weird, isn't it? If you put it out, like if you did it more normally and naturally, I'm pretty sure Light, either L would have never caught on, or even if he did, he would have caught on far later, whereas Light would have had more, secrecy and mystery to him. He was just basically laying it all out, and he got drawn into his traps so quick, so easy early on, where he was on television saying, I think there's a killer, and then he killed the guy off, and that was actually L setting up the trap. And I was like, for me personally, that's kind of smart, but it's also, I would have been second guessing. I'm like, should I or should I not? And he didn't even think at all. So Light is smart, but he made a stupid decision. And you can say, well, maybe it's his psychology, but his psychology will be also directly linked to his intelligence. And if he is able to, because if he's supposed to be a master manipulator, the biggest problem of your master manipulator is if you're getting manipulated. The whole point of you being a master manipulator is being able to manipulate others and control your own mental psyche and be able to use that against somebody else. And he did sometimes, but most of the times he would fall into his own reckless behaviors and get caught up by, L, and then in the ending by Nier. Nier was able to get him and trick him, and he basically just fell into his traps. So for me, he feels like a guy that is too cocky, and that is also a weakness mentally, so that would be also a level of stupidity, because a smart person will know that, hey, I need to keep my arrogance in check because it will take me down. But he never did that. Now some people might say, well, Lelouch had the same problems as him and vice as him, but when I get into that, you're going to see why that is not the case. Now, so yeah, he fell for that. When you go to Lelouch, what is his situation? His situation was a little bit bigger because he had to deal with this evil not organization, but like nation as a whole, with rulers, and they basically had powerful mechs and had a whole big army taking over all this place. And he was one person working with a small rebel group just from Japan. This entire group was able to colonize most of the world, and this tiny ass country, Japan, with only a handful of people, he was able to take that and then beat them. And yes, he did also have help with, the Gios, and most people didn't know, but the difference is there were other people with Gios on the other side that were against him, and even while he was fighting against a bunch of them, he was able to handle them and take them on. And the way I think about it is, if we were to reverse the Lelouch and Light situation, who would be more likely to be able to accomplish the other one's goal? Let's take Lelouch, put him into the Death Note world, and put him in Light's situation, and take Light and put him in Lelouch's world and put him in Lelouch's situation and try to accomplish their goals. Who would be better at achieving it? I think Lelouch will. And like I said, Lelouch could get mentally, taken advantage of too, but the difference between him and Light is Light shows no sense of morals or care when he gets the, Death Note. So for him to be manipulated emotionally, it's purely on him, because for a guy like him, he has no moral quandaries that he will not pass, and he was able to get taken advantage of. Whereas Lelouch, he might bend the rules and do some fucked up stuff, but he still is stuck in the confines of his morals and will not break it. And he cares about his sister. He cares about his classmates. He wants to keep up this facade, but also he truly cares too. Whereas all Light was doing was basically keeping up the facade, but he didn't give a shit. He didn't even care when his dad was dying. So he had less of moral quandaries on what he was willing to do and what he was not willing to do, yet he was still able to get manipulated easy. Whereas Lelouch, the only times he got manipulated was when he was getting people he cared about, in a situation. But that wasn't because he was mentally, weak or dumb. It was just the fact that he cares. So we have one guy who doesn't give a shit at all about the people, and the other guy that does. So it's going to be harder for that guy. It's like a hero versus a villain. The villain, since they have no morals, it's harder to, one-up them. Whereas the hero, all you have to do is hold an innocent person hostage. So in that case, I would say Lelouch, I can give him a free pass because he put some moral restrictions on what he was willing to allow. So this was basically going to prevent him and put him in bad situations. Whereas Light didn't have that moral problems, so he had more freedom, yet was still taking advantage of far more. I mean, let's be honest. Lelouch had to deal with many different changing situations, very big, oppositions, and his biggest one was Light, L, but he had multiple other people. He had to fight one of his friends, Suzaku, which he didn't want to kill him. He even commanded him to keep himself alive, and even if he wanted to kill him, couldn't. So it's like it's far more difficult when you look at their situations. And when I think about it, it's like, well, one, Lelouch failed. Not Lelouch. Light failed his goal. He failed in accomplishing his goal. Lelouch surpassed and accomplished his. And Lelouch's one was to get the entire world to hate him, view him as the villain, take down an evil governmental or organization, and bring world peace. And he did that. Light couldn't even bring justice to the world for that long. He brought it for a couple years, then died. Whereas this guy, he basically used himself as a self-sacrifice without pretty much anybody even knowing, and brought world peace. So he accomplished a far bigger goal and a far bigger threat situation. And he was manipulated far less and taken, been easy to take over, advantage of his, psychology, whereas Light had less to less to use against him psychologically wise, but it still was easy to get taken over. So if I put Lelouch in Light's situation, I'm sorry, but I don't see L really catching onto Lelouch early on. He might catch onto him, but far later, and I think Lelouch would be able to kill both him and Nier. I think he would be planning multiple steps ahead and knowing every plan they're doing and plan ahead of that and beat them. And Light, with the Gios, he was very crazy with the Death Note. He's gonna go crazy with this, and then if he's in a big battle scenario where he's in a mech suit and has to command these entire armies, I think he's gonna be very limited in his strategic battle mindset like a general, and I think he might do some good, but I think in the end he will basically be pretty much I don't think he would be able to get out of the tough situations that Lelouch did. So the way I see it is Light having basically the Gios trying to fight Britannia, and I can see him end up getting killed in a battle in the mech suit and not be able to survive. And Lelouch in Light's situation, I'm pretty sure he would be able to outsmart both L and Nier. And it's also even more crazy when you see the movie, and I know a lot of people say the movie's not canon, but whatever. In the movie, he fought against a woman who had the ability to rewind time. And even though she rewinded time every time, and she kept her memory, but Lelouch didn't, no matter what contingency plan she made, he beat her every goddamn time and got closer and closer and closer to where she was, to the point where it didn't matter if she can rewind time. This guy not only every time she rewinded it and made 10,000 steps ahead because she already knows what to do. He remembered, he found out how to way to beat it every time, even though this was basically his first time and this was her 10,000 times she's done this. It was his first time, and he still had a contingency plan. He still had a way to beat her, and she still didn't have any way to beat that, even with that big of a ability. And not only was he able to find out what power she had, he was able to find out the limitations, how to exploit the limitations, how to combat against all of her advantages that she had in quick time every time, to the point where he basically checkmated her and made her end her own self, saying, fuck it, I can't beat this guy. This guy just basically stalemated me every time while I had advantage of the whole board. She could overview everything. He could just view in a small line, and yet his intelligence was so smart that he, even though his viewpoint of the situation was more linear and hers was more fragmented, it can go throughout the entire situation, he was still able to combat it in quick time, in real time. She had all this planning, he did it instantly, was able to do it and beat her. I don't see Light doing this. Light struggled against Nier. He fell for a trap by Nier super easily, so I don't think he's going to be able to surpass Lelouch in his situation. This is why one of the reasons I consider him one of the smartest characters in anime in general. So that's super impressive if you ask me, that movie showcases insane intelligence. I don't see Light being able to handle that. He would have been like, what? Dude, you had a supernatural object. These guys were regular humans, they didn't expect it, and they still were able to catch you. And L was able to find out early on that he was using some supernatural means, even though in their world they wouldn't have assumed it, but he just did it because he was so reckless and stupid. Lelouch was nowhere near as reckless as him, even though he had more ways to get easily manipulated because of his emotions. Now, I went into that quite a bit, so let's go into the realistic, because I think the biggest argument here when it comes to intelligence is the fictional and realistic side. And the reason why I think that it's a big argument is because a lot of people are saying, well, this character can create this and that, but then you have other people saying, well, realistically, this person is doing the stuff that they're doing is scientifically accurate, and they're explaining in very well detail. And it's like, well, then you have an argument as well, it was fiction, so it doesn't matter. But then it's like, well, in the end of the day, that is actually smarter because it's showcasing actually the steps and showing many different levels of intelligence. And you guys probably know at this point who's the character that I'm referring to as, and that is Senku. I don't know if I mentioned early on, I probably forgot, but Senku is definitely the smartest character in all of anime because, and like I said, there's a lot of different ways to interpret intelligence. You know, strategic slash psychological intelligence, fictional and realistic. And fictional, I'll put Oboma. Psychological and tactful, I'll put Lelouch. And just realistically, definitely Senku. And in general, I would say also Senku. Why? Bulma, yes, she can invent crazy stuff that he could never, but let's look at it in the sense of what the shows are. Dragon Ball is more sci-fi, whereas, Dr. Stone might have some sci-fi elements, but it's still far more grounded in reality, and most of the main stuff that they're accomplishing is just scientific stuff. And when you look at it in that sense, even though the show has more limitations due to being more realistic, whereas the other one doesn't, he has shown more insane intelligence. He's shown it in both in the medical field, chemistry, biochemistry, engineering, psychology. What's the other thing called? Not astrology. Astronomy, physics. Every big scientific thing that you can think of, or smart type of subject that you can think of, this man knows an insane amount of it. Sorry for that, there's an airplane flying by, but he knows an insane amount in all these different aspects. Like Bulma, she might have it in like mechanical and maybe some bio level of PhD or some type of I don't want to keep on saying intelligence, I want to say some sort of, I guess you could just say intelligent, whatever, for lack of a better term. But yeah, she has that. But look at Senku. He basically shows knowledge, and not just a bit of it, but an overwhelming amount of knowledge and math. Engineering, physics, astronomy, medical, did I say biology? Chemistry, what else? Geography. I'm trying to think about a couple of other ones. Mathematical, philosophy. Basically everything, even things you wouldn't think he would know. He knows about magical secrets. He knows all this shit. And then his detailed step-by-step plan on how these things work, where he explains how to make a battery, how to make this, how to make that, how to make medicine, how to make a tank. This guy's in the prehistoric time, and he's basically advancing and fixing all of civilization by himself with his own intelligence. Obviously, he has other people help him out, but it's his intelligence that's doing this. He created all this stuff. He created phones, he created batteries, he created a tank, he created armor, he created guns, he created explosions, he created medicine. He was creating fucking crazy shit. Every fucking time when I was reading the thing in each chapter and stuff, I'm like, what the hell? How is he gonna create this? How the hell is he gonna create that? Obviously, it's a more primitive version because you need a whole factory and stuff like that. But even then, he was creating factories. This guy created an airplane. This guy is such a smart motherfucker. He's so intelligent. And not only that, even in dangerous situations, he's able to be strategic mind too. So he also has Lelouch's mindset too when it comes to his strategic, outlook. He was able to beat a guy who's way stronger than him with a nation of strong people in a primitive time where they didn't have any advanced technology. And he was able to beat them through psychology, through, medical ways, and through, engineering stuff. This guy is just smart. The stuff that he did. So when you look at it and you see these people like engineers, physicists, and doctors, when they watch the show and the stuff that he explains, it's not like, oh, it's just it's anime, so that's why it works. They themselves say that is legit, that is legit, that is right, that is true. There's very few things in the Dr. Stone anime and manga that are not correct because, well, it's still, anime and it still has some level of, insanity and fun. Like for example, Hajime no Ippo. It's a very grounded boxing, anime, but it also has ridiculous moments because it's still anime. It's supposed to be over the top. Same thing with Dr. Stone. But when it comes to just pure raw facts and knowledge, they are some of the best. The author is really dedicated in showcasing the intelligence and the understanding of these different things to the point where he takes time off not just to relax, but to do more research to put it in there. And like I said, there's countless videos of, different YouTubers where they're basically people that work in these high levels of professions that make YouTube videos and that analyze this, and they themselves are saying, he's right, he's right, he's right, he's right there. So if they themselves, these people who are smart and actually, well versed in this, are agreeing that what he's saying is right, just showcases how smart he is. So yes, Bulma, fiction wise, if we're gonna say, screw realisticness and just stick to fantasy, yeah, she will definitely be the smartest because of what she's able to accomplish. But Senku, if we were talking about not only accomplishments, but intelligence in different types of fields, but also the accuracy and his intelligence, where it's not just, oh, this is just fake intelligence, where you see with like Bulma, it's like it's not going to be really in depth explained. His one is real. It's real. This is real science that you can apply. The science that you see the Bulma and these other characters apply, they might have some real science in it, but mostly it's still fake. Whereas, Dr. Stone and Senku, he's providing us real scientific fact, and you're actually learning stuff. It just shows you his intelligence and the situation he's in with the prehistoric world and the world going back to prehistoric times and caveman and being able to do all this and knowing this much is just smart. Every time I see him, I'm surprised about his intelligence. Other characters, I've never been this surprised. So before I would have said Bulma, but him coming in does throw a monkey's wrench into the intelligent argument, and it does bring up the argument about, well, what about realistic intelligence? Which he does showcase that. So if you're saying who's the smartest character in all of anime, 100% Senku. He is one of the smartest because not only does he have a well amount of knowledge, but he has a well amount of knowledge in many different aspects and fields all at once. He's also super young. He's a super young guy knowing all this stuff. He's able to accomplish such great things even in a bad situation, and he's very good in all those aspects, and it can be fact checked by real people that are professionals in that are highly intelligent, also agreeing that he's smart, and even they learned some stuff from him. So yeah, Senku is definitely the smartest. And I know this was a long, more complex, detailed way, but like I said, this question is a lot more complex than people think it is. It's not as simple as, oh, who's smarter? Well, this character created this much. Oh, this character has this high of an IQ. Oh, this character did this. Because there's more intricacies into intelligence, and those are the three I came up with, but as a whole, just in general, I would say realistically as a whole, definitely Senku, and realism is important. If a character can show their intelligence through realism compared to fiction, where, because in the fictional one, they have less limitations. They can do whatever they want. Whereas Senku, he has more limitations, yet he's able to achieve so much and showcase such intelligence and a high level intellectual prowess, while he has so many restrictions, while the other one doesn't, and he's still able to go there. So yeah, definitely Senku. So yeah, I wonder what you guys think. Who do you guys think is the smartest? What do you guys think about my argument, my points, my descriptions, and what I went into? Who do you think is the smartest? Personally, I still think is Senku. Who do you think would be above Senku then, and why? So comment down in the comment section down below, who do you think is the smartest in your opinion, and I hope you guys have a great day.